Hi, if you're getting ready to buy a house, townhouse, condo, doesn't matter, you have a question burning in your head. You're thinking about it all the time. And it's a question that every buyer asks at some point very early in the process. Problem is, this question may not have a black and white answer for you when a black and white answer is what you're hoping to get. And the factors that enter into whatever answer you get have to do with cost of living, lifestyle, what your plans are, and all of that. And that question is, how much home can I afford? You'd think you could just plug some numbers in with your lender and out pops an exact idea or exact number that you can shop with. And, in many respects, a lender can do this, but there are a lot of factors that play into what you can afford. And those include equity, those include what your plans are and your lifestyle, and they also factor in if you've already got a house that you need to sell or rent out or something like that. So the question that gets asked very often around here, Googled profusely, is how much home can I afford? And the answer isn't just the lender's pre-approval amount. In this area, Montgomery County, the DMV across the board, the average price of a home in this area is hovering around $600,000. So we're not talking about small amounts of money. We're talking about very serious investments. But it's early 2026. Inventory's up, rates have improved a bit. So you do have some potential bargaining power depending on where exactly you're looking and what properties you're trying to secure. Countering that bargaining power you now have is high cost of living, high taxes, potentially even condo and HOA dues, and all of that has to be factored in to determine what it is that you can, in fact, actually afford. So I'm going to go over some ideas here. I'm going to give you some strategies on how to look at this and help you come to terms with what it is you can afford and how to even expand upon it depending on your particular circumstances. If you're coming from a home that you've perhaps owned 10 or 20 years, then the first thing you should be looking at is the net equity of your home before you even start considering sale prices. If you're downsizing, that will play a big part in deciding what you can afford. And it'll also impact greatly the mortgage payment should you decide to finance the remainder. So if you have a $500,000 home that is paid off and has no mortgage, and you're factoring in expenses for that sale, you have a good bit of equity. You could have $450,000 in equity that will go against the sale price of the house. And if you're looking at something in the range of $600,000, you might only need a $150,000 mortgage, which is way more affordable than a $500,000 mortgage. To factor that in. Also, if you've had a chance to build up a portfolio of investments, you can often use that money without taking it out necessarily. And that will help you give a leg up on how much you can afford as well, because in many cases, you can borrow against your portfolio at a much more favorable set of terms than you can negotiate with the bank for a mortgage. So look at your net proceeds and look at your investments because they can help you do much better in the market than you could otherwise. Ultimately, what you're trying to do with those options is to maximize your down payment. So you lessen the amount of the monthly payment so that your retirement is not compromised. You can still travel. You can do all the things you still want to do. Yet you can still have a really nice place to live in. Now, we've covered the aspect of trying to maximize your down payment and keep your mortgage payment at a minimum. We also have to factor in the hidden costs that you may not be thinking of, especially if you haven't bought a house in quite some time. It's not just principal and interest. You've also got property taxes, which are going to continue to go up. You have HOA or condo dues, which also will continue to go up over the lifetime of your ownership. And you've got maintenance factors. So you've got to factor all those things in as well. Those are not part of your monthly calculation, especially when you're talking about the maintenance fees, but you do have to factor them in. They are costs. And if you're going to be on a limited or a fixed income, even with this low payment house, you're going to want to keep those in mind so that you're not putting yourself in a position where you can't afford where you've decided to purchase. Many people will advise that if you're heading into retirement, that you want to keep your total housing expenses somewhere below the 25 to 30% mark of your gross income when you retire. Some financial advisors will tell you that if you're heading toward retirement, you want to keep your total housing expenses to about 25 to 30% or less of your monthly gross income. And that includes fees for HOA and condo dues, insurance, that sort of stuff. So keep in mind your equity, keep in mind your assets, so you can have a large enough down payment to lessen the amount that you're actually borrowing. And you want to be mindful of the hidden costs because they can creep up on you later, and we don't want any surprises. There's also a pricing strategy geographically that you want to factor in here so that you get the best options available. Now, if you want to live in Bethesda, Potomac, and you have the means to do that, you're going to be looking at a house probably in the $1 million range. But if you're trying to keep the budget lower and you're interested in 55 and over, we have Leisure World. They have all ranges of apartments and houses, condos and co-ops, and they're all at a lower price range than you might find in some of the higher areas of the county. And then, of course, there's also Germantown, Montgomery Village. They have townhomes and smaller homes in a more modest price range. And you also have Rockville and Gaithersburg, which runs the gamut. So be aware of where you want to live to enhance your buying power based on what your budget allows or what you want your budget to allow. Now, this is very important because the inventory is up and the market has cooled from its COVID frenetic pace. You do have time. So always know that buying a house is an emotional experience, no doubt about it. But don't let emotion be the driving force because it doesn't have to be. Buy a home you love. But while you're doing that, check the logistics and the analytical side of it as well so that you're making the right choice and still buy a house you love. In most areas, inventory is up 37, 38%. So there's a good array of properties. Now, there are still bidding wars in some areas. You have to be careful. There are areas where the inventory is not quite so good and the buyer interest is quite high. So it isn't homogeneous across the board where every house is sitting on the market 30 to 60 days. There are areas like that, but there are areas still that put the house up on the market Thursday, and by the middle of the following week, it's already under contract. But there are enough options in most areas and for most budgets that you can seriously look at what you want, decide what it is you want without having to jump through hoops on an emotional roller coaster just to get a house. Now, you want to have a good lender by your side on this. If you have a house to sell, you may not have to sell it first. There are options that make it easier for a person or family to buy a new place without having to immediately liquidate the first property, and you can make them work together in one streamlined process. Or bridge loans, there are different kinds of products that can do that. So talk to a good lender that knows all those options. If you're a buyer that needs some financial assistance, there are programs like that as well. So we want to connect you up with a lender that knows all these things, that has a good idea of what's out there, and can help you find the product that you want and best fits your lifestyle so that when you are retired and you've reached that glorious threshold in life, you can still afford to do all the things you still want to. So how much home can you afford? Well, it isn't necessarily the one the lender says you can afford. It's the one that supports your lifestyle the best. It's the one that allows the lifestyle you want to have and lets you live the way that you want to live. Factors that influence this are going to be remembering that the average price of a home in Montgomery County and the surrounding areas is around $600,000. Inventory is up 37, 38%, and rates have moderated a bit. So these are all going to influence what and where you want to purchase. Where you want to be influences it greatly. Do you want to spend higher condo fees to have that sort of environment, or a lower price in the suburbs further out, or a place like Leisure World? Definitely want to consider both those options to see where it fits best for you. But ultimately, no matter what you choose, you want to factor in lifestyle, equity of your current property, and net proceeds as much as you want to factor in the price of the purchase that you're actually going to make. Keep all these factors we talked about in mind, and you'll find the home of your dreams where you can relax and live comfortably and just have a blast.